It's been 2 weeks and $605 later that it's taken to get this Gran Fury running good. Well, sort of running good. Let me explain. $605 is what it took to get this car back on the road again, and that included safety testing and emissions compliance as well. Now, this car sat for 8.5 years, and during that time it was driven a total of 50 miles, and so there was a lot of deferred maintenance that needed to be caught up on. And that's where I came in, and that's the things that I did. Things like hoses and belts, spark plugs and wires, fuses, bulbs, headlights, a catalytic converter, and the most expensive part of the whole thing, which were new tires. Now, that deferred maintenance, that was the easy part. The real challenge and the real bugaboo with this car is what's under the hood, and it's what the geniuses at Chrysler came up with to control the ignition timing. So let's jump under the hood. I'll show you real fast what I'm talking about. The engineers at Chrysler came up with this really ingenious system. They called it the electronic fuel control system. It basically takes 8 different parameters coming off the engine, feeds it to the computer. The computer then adjusts the air-fuel ratio going through the carburetor to maintain that optimal 14.7 to 1 ratio, and it also adjusts the spark and the vacuum advance at the same time. Now, these 8 different sensors include a detonation sensor on the intake manifold, an O2 sensor down here on the exhaust manifold, a charge temperature sensor, an engine temp sensor, a throttle position sensor, a carb switch, a vacuum level, and a coolant temperature sensor as well. And it all feeds into the electronic control module right here hanging over the exhaust manifold, which is a perfect spot for any electronics. And that's the weakest link with this car. But there's a lot of great features that go along with it as well. So let's hop in, we'll go for a drive, and I'll show you around. One of the first thing as soon as you get into this car, you realize how smooth and quiet it is. And that's one of the call-outs Plymouth made in the brochure for the Gran Fury, was just how luxurious and quiet and refined. It's really a quiet and smooth and comfortable car. Now, in that same brochure of the entire Plymouth lineup, the Gran Fury, it was listed on the very last page, even after the Omni and the Turismo. Remember those things? That's how dated and out of sync this car was in 1988. This car, when it was new, it came with an impressive 12-month and 12,000-mile bumper-to-bumper warranty. Now, Chrysler supplemented that warranty with a 5-year, 50,000-mile powertrain warranty and a corrosion and rust-through warranty as well. And I distinctly remember that 5-year, 50,000-mile warranty being touted over and over again with all the different Chrysler products of this era. I also remember from that time how proud Chrysler was of this multifunction turn signal stalk that works not just the turn signals, but the cruise control, the high beams, the windshield wipers, and the intermittent feature. It was pretty cutting-edge design in the mid-1980s, and that feature was added to nearly every Chrysler product at that time as well. And I distinctly remember it being very European-like. It's funny to me that in those sales and marketing pieces for this car, they call out the instrumentation and how it's very functional and clean and simple and driver-oriented, and how it puts function first and the arrangement is for maximum visibility. But I remember car magazines of the day pointing out, for instance, how the radio, which is typically the most used feature in a car, is, in this car, it's below the climate control, which causes more opportunities for your eyes to be off the road. And in those magazines, they talked about how that's exactly what's wrong with American-made cars, and that they're simply out of touch and out of sync with what the buyers want. The brochures for this car at that time loved to tout the 5.3 liter, 318 cubic inch V8 engine that's in this car. But it hardly makes any mention of the puny 140 horsepower that engine makes. It should have mentioned the torque rating, which is 265 foot-pounds of torque. And at 3,500 pounds, it moves this car pretty well, and frankly, it's pretty adequate, even in today's driving and today's driving styles. What really makes me laugh, though, is the rear gear ratio in this car. Now, remember the era that this car was made, 1980s. And it's not necessarily the cost of gas, the price per gallon, but the fact that the price per gallon of gas more than doubled within a year and a half. And nobody knew where the peak was going to be, and nobody knew how high it was going to go. And so Chrysler and the engineers decided to eke out every last mile per gallon out of this engine using the most highway-friendly gear ratio possible. Now, performance cars in the 60s, they had a gear ratio of 373 or 410. A nice family commuter might have a 323 gear ratio, or maybe even a really highway-friendly 3-to-1. This car, 2.2-to-1 gear ratio. Outrageous. Now, this car is strangely optioned. Now, it's a Plymouth, right? It's the low-cost leader for Chrysler. And there was a Dodge and a Chrysler equivalent to this car that had more standard features and better appointed. But this car is weird in that the way it's spec'd out. It comes with standard a 60 amp alternator, but because I have a rear defroster, I get upgraded to 78 amps. It comes with power steering and brakes as standard equipment. There's special sound deadening package, and I'm betting this car has it because literally it's whisper quiet when driving. I've got the optional dual outside power mirrors. I got cruise control, intermittent, variable delay wipers too. But what you don't get with that is reclining seats. Yeah, the front seat goes 4.5, but that's the only adjustment you get. You don't get a recline feature at all. It was an option in this car. And that option, that was for the passenger. Now, size-wise, the closest I've been able to equate this car to is a Toyota Camry. They're identical in width. This car is just a little longer than a Camry, and close to about the same weight as a Camry, but this car is cramped inside when compared to that Camry. And probably one of the most overlooked features of this car is visibility. You sit up high, the windows sit low, There's no blind spots. You have literally 360-degree visibility all around you, unimpeded, and it's so easy to see around, to look behind you, the lane change. Also, the driving dynamics is just absolutely pleasant. The steering is light, the ride is comfortable, it's smooth and quiet inside. There's no rattles or shakes or vibrations. It's really just a fantastic driving car. But the one problem I'm having, despite all the repairs and the deferred maintenance that I did on this car, is that lean burn system, is that electronic control. So I've tested and I've cleaned the different sensors and the different switches, and I'm still struggling fine-tuning the timing, the ignition timing. Once I dial in the timing so it runs great when it's cold, I get a misfire when the engine's all warmed up. And when I dial in the timing to take out that misfire when the engine's warmed up, I get the misfire when the engine's cold. I haven't yet found that sweet spot for the ignition timing, and frankly, the ignition marks on the damper, they're meaningless. They don't factor into this at all. They don't help one bit in dialing the timing. And I think that's the number one reason why these cars had such a short lifespan, was the electronic system, the complexity of it. There's no OBD port to plug into to diagnose what went wrong or what the issues are. It's trial and error, it's testing, and it's throwing money at parts that you think you might need or don't need. Now, there is an easy fix for it. There is replacement distributors and carburetors that you can put on there. Takes care of the problem, eliminates the lean burn and all the electronic systems that go along with it. But it's $300-400 to do the repair. And frankly, my goal with this car is to keep it as original as possible. More as a tribute to the original owner than anything. Look, the guy that bought this car new, he took such good care of this thing. He really cared and pampered this car. And I want to maintain that. I want to honor him and honor what he's done with this car and keep it as original as possible. Originally, I had plans of making it a police car replica. Two-tone, maybe vinyl on the doors, the steel wheels, the little hubcaps, sway bar. But that's changed. The more I drive this car, the more I just love what it is and what its purpose is and how it's been cared for and how it's lived such a long lifespan in such good condition. And so it's going to be my tribute to the original owner to maintain that philosophy and that approach. So there you go, that's my Gran Fury, the good and the bad of it. I hope you liked it, I hope you appreciate the car, I hope you stick around as I try to detail and bring this paint back to new again. And as always, thanks so much for watching.